Hard work, real talk, no shortcuts. I'm Joseph Cabrera. This is American Operator. All right, team. We are here in Colorado Springs. Still not in our Austin studio. We've been on our Colorado World Tour. And to say I'm super stoked about being able to do this show today here would be an understatement. One, because it's different than anything we've done before, any kind of guest we've had before. And two, anytime I get to hang out with a fellow warrior here, especially someone still serving, it matters. So we have Justin here who, man, a lot of call signs. Astro, I'm sure you've had some fun call signs in the middle between there, but probably if you've watched Netflix, specifically the Thunderbirds there, this would be Thunderbird 1 and the commander of the entire squadron. And if you haven't watched it, I'll tell you right now, pause this podcast, go watch it, then come back and listen to this thing. Pulls at the heartstrings and makes Top Gun feel like a cakewalk. So, brother, man, thank you for letting us come into your place here and hang out with you today.
Thanks, JC. It's amazing to have you guys here, and I have a lot of respect for what you do and what you continue to do to bring people together from different walks of life and encourage Americans.
Yeah, man. Well, having you on this thing, when I told the team, we do for a lot of folks who don't know behind the scenes, we do a lot of like production sausage making behind the house. We put guests up. Does that fit? How's this going to go? Logistics, all those things, an Army thing. Logistics, how's it all work? But the reality of it is when we put it was a total different thing. And in my mind, I thought there's a 50-50 chance the team goes, that makes no sense. Zero rebuts on it. It was like, are we going tomorrow? Like, when are we going to go talk to Justin? You know, Colonel Elliott there. When are we going to go do that? So, man, so stoked to be here. I think what would be great is just kind of kick off with, for folks who maybe don't know what it takes to kind of get to even just beginning to have a chance to be a fighter pilot. Talk to me about where you grew up, maybe a little bit about your folks, and then how it kind of led you to potentially exploring the Air Force as a career.
Yeah, absolutely. We got to go way back. I think that context is important. So both of my parents immigrated from Canada back in the day. So I'm first-gen American in the U.S. We grew up in Houston, and my whole life was spent in Houston, Texas, and until I got to college. And that context is important because what I was surrounded by down there was not military, but NASA. It was right there in your backyard, and that is an easy thing to get inspired by. The very best people in the world doing amazing things, and I was a young kid when Challenger blew up, so you saw that, huh? It was a very impactful memory for me as a young child. So I would draw space shuttles all the time, and when I got to kind of my teen years, and started looking at what I was going to do with my life, I started looking at what the background was for astronauts, NASA astronauts. And a lot of them were test pilots from either the Air Force or the Navy. So I was like, okay, I guess I got to do that.
What does that mean to be a test pilot, by the way?
So experimental test pilots are able to fly anything. So for anything from rotary wing helicopters to blimps to large airplanes to World War II seaplanes, literally all of these things I'm listing are in the test pilot school syllabus, year-long program.
Did you say balloons?
Yeah, balloons. Oh yeah. And if it flies, it could be the next thing, right? So, so we learn how to basically just take apart a new thing and learn how to fly it and see if it works and bring it back safely-ish, and then give feedback to the engineers on what to do with it next.
Incredible. So you knew that was a baseline for being an astronaut.
I knew back then it was a hard criteria. This was like the middle of the shuttle era, and it was just what you had to do. So as I was kind of having these conversations with my parents growing up, and I've got two younger sisters too, the military was the last thing on their mind, as immigrants. And but they're actually very patriotic in their way because they chose to come here, right? So and that's a trend I see over and over. So they chose to come here. They believe in what we believe in. And so when I was 18 and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to go into the military. Even at that point, we had one big barrier, and that was my eyesight. So this
pretty important piece of the equation.
So I did not have good eyesight as a kid. I had glasses. I was a huge dork, huge. Like I was a swimmer, which helped a little bit getting into college and stuff. But I had glasses. I had for those who know glasses, contact prescriptions, I was a -5.5, so pretty bad. In fact, turns out to be the absolute edge of possible for getting laser surgery in the Air Force. But when I went into college, I went on an ROTC scholarship. So I went to Yale. I swam for Yale. I did mechanical engineering, and I did ROTC. As a class of one, because it wasn't on campus at the time. It had actually been knocked off campus back after Vietnam. So
did they share it with a couple other universities, or what happened?
They do. So I would drive to University of Connecticut back and forth twice a week, and then by my senior year, it was happening a lot more frequently than that.
Yeah, was it just controversial? Is that why they didn't keep it on campus?
It was when Vietnam kicked off. It was a lot of protests, and they ended up kicking ROTC off campus, and then they just didn't bring it back until after I graduated. So I want to say around 2009, they finally pulled the trigger and brought it back to campus. And now it's actually a thriving detachment. But there was a dark day there when you had 1 or 2 Yale cadets a year, sometimes none. And we would cross town out to University of Connecticut, Det 115 to do our ROTC. Of note, my first day of ROTC was September 11th.
Get out of here.
Like the September 11th. So,
really, man? We just celebrated that yesterday. I remember that yesterday, man.
Yes.
What a why Yale?
So for, athletes, a lot of that's driven by where you are recruited. So I was recruited to swim 200 breaststroke, 400 IM for Yale. And that's what got me in the door. But you know what's funny? Despite not having ROTC on campus, the nostalgia around Yale's service history is amazing.
I mean, a lot of war heroes coming from that university, man.
And when you walk into that main hallway called Woolsey Hall, you have this rotunda where everyone who has passed away in combat on behalf of the United States who graduated from Yale is etched into the wall. And it goes back to the American Revolution and before, and all the way through the Civil War. So when you see that, you realize, hey, we're just in a culture wave right now. This institution, 300 years and counting, is a service-oriented institution. It's going through a point where it's not hot right now. But kind of wrapping that up, so I went into ROTC knowing that according to the rules of the moment, I could not be a pilot. Now I still wanted to do it.
Because you couldn't even correct you had to be born with good eyesight.
That's right.
Yeah.
The laser surgery that was later allowed was not a thing at that point. But I wanted it so badly. By the time I got to that point, I was really getting interested in aviation and really trying to chase that dream to space. And I had done some flying on my own. I wanted to fly for the Air Force, but I knew for those first 2 years of college, like, all right, I'm going to have to be an engineer for the Air Force. And that's going to be great. And I'll find a way to design airplanes if I can't fly them. All right, so off we go down that road. Well, February 2003, I'll never forget this, the Air Force changed its policy and allowed laser for the first time. March of 2003, I got laser surgery. April of 2003, I was selected to be a pilot.
You're like just rearing, paying attention to that criteria.
Yes.
What was that feeling like when you learned that was the case? It just probably changed your whole trajectory.
It changed my entire life philosophy, JC, because it was my first of many experiences where I realized that if you really want something and you do everything that you possibly can to get there, there's still absolutely no guarantee that's going to work out. But there's a 100% guarantee that if you don't chase it, that it won't work out. So for me, that was kind of a shaping moment because that one happened to work. But I was going to go down that road anyway, the best I could to provide the opportunity for when that moment hit. If it hit, then I would be ready to capitalize out of that and go fly. Incredible. So a lot of luck, a lot of things are.
I mean, think about, I know I'm jumping ahead, but I think about all that you've done. We were laughing about that a little bit ahead of time. Just 1 degree off and the whole life's different.
100%.
If that policy didn't change or you didn't read about it in time and you picked a different branch of job in the Air Force, what we have today and know about you wouldn't be a thing. It's kind of nuts to think about that.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I'd like to think that everything I did to pursue that trajectory would have just shifted over a degree and been just as fulfilling somewhere else. But all I can say for sure is, looking back at it, life seems to be a combination of opportunities, but mostly the preparation you put into being ready to take that opportunity when it finally comes your way. And knowing that may not be soon.
Yeah.
That may be quite distant in the future that you actually get your chance. But if you're not ready for that, then it is going to pass you by.
Where does that come from? Is that parents? Like, how did you learn to have that level of resilience? And it sounds like ultimately patience with it, you know?
Patience is a good answer. I think my parents, when I was growing up, always centered on effort over performance. And I think they were really good at conveying young to me that you can control what you can control. You have absolutely no idea what the 99% influences outside are going to do and what cards you're going to get dealt, but you can control your own preparation, your own abilities, and your own skill set. So that was something that I just remember from my childhood was always their anchor point was, did you give it 100% effort? Yeah, it was an A or a B, but did you give it 100% effort? And if I didn't, they would call me out on it.
So you had a good ASVAB check there every single time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's funny how effort does kind of carry you along the way. When you got done with Yale, and you talk to me a little bit about, especially for folks who don't really understand the process.
Yeah.
You know, you're just not jumping right into a jet. What happens after? What is all that before you hit your first, duty station where you're actually flying?
I'll start with for those with kiddos that are coming up on that decision on what to do about college. I will tell you that I had no idea what ROTC was as a senior in high school. I knew you could go in through the academies, the service academies, and then I thought that was the only option. So it is worth understanding that ROTC is a college program, and it is, no kidding, tied to the United States military. It's not JROTC. A lot of people correlate those incorrectly. They think junior ROTC is what we're talking about. But
and you're just like playing Army in some club you're part of in college.
These are two completely different things. Like ROTC is a full scholarship to a university of your choosing.
Yeah.
Huge opportunity. And just because I was there, I was that senior in high school that I had no idea what that was. And thankfully somebody told me about it.
Yeah, man, it's a sliver of the world. People can have their thoughts about joining the military or not, but it's one and the same. When I was not thinking about going to the academy. I had gotten a full ride ROTC scholarship, University of Texas.
Yep,
that's where I was going to go. Only later did I actually kind of oppositely start to learn about this other thing. Yep. But either one of those would have been highly acceptable to be serve in uniform and do your thing.
Absolutely, and it's so. To answer your question, so leaving college now, so I commissioned as a second lieutenant. It's the youngest officer rank. You have no idea what you're doing. And that's a good thing because it leaves those doors in your mind open to receiving inputs from the people who've been doing this for a long time. Yeah. And the first step is you go to pilot training and you learn how to fly anything. And in this case, in my era, it was the T6 Texan 2, which you fly for about 7 months, and then you get into the T38 Talon.
Is the Texan a prop?
Texan's a prop.
Yeah,
Texan's a prop, pretty powerful one. About 350 miles an hour, 6 Gs, decent aircraft to fly around.
Double seater or what?
It is a 2-seater. Yeah, for everybody's sake, that's the right answer.
Not too many open doors as a second lieutenant. Yeah, like you're still gonna have a chaperone.
Absolutely. Yeah. Who's correcting you constantly? And pilot training's tough. Pilot training is a year and a little bit long, very intense academically. They don't kid around about knowing your systems and memorizing everything about that airplane, every emergency that could happen. And then you're just learning how to fly. And there's a little bit of an introduction to military flying with formation flight and aerobatics, a little bit of aerobatics.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, the shocker is always formation. I don't care who you are.
Because you're just getting close to each other, and that just didn't feel right.
All you can think about is that spinning propeller sitting right next to the wing, of your friend next to you. And you're like, if I miss inside right now, I'm going to chop his wing off and I'm also going to crash.
Yeah.
And that's literally what your mind does.
I can only imagine. I mean, give me your first day or two there. Like what was happening? I got to imagine that's just a complete shock to the system, even already knowing what the military is about.
Yes. I mean, military training. Totally. So it is very similar in it is a military course. It is formal release. You show up at 6 a.m. every morning. You have a start time, you have a scheduled out day, and then you have an end time. And no matter what, in pilot training, even if you are done with your day, you have to stay at least 12 hours. It is a firm rule. So you leave the flight room at 6 p.m. And they do that because they're trying to get the point across that, hey, there is always something that you can be studying right now. Like
Yeah.
you're not done because you don't know everything about every aircraft in the Air Force, and you don't know everything about even the one that you're about to fly tomorrow.
Yeah, man. It's funny how they that stuff in different ways across the services is kind of really just there's like embedded in the DNA. I remember folding our clothes a certain way and thinking, why does this matter? Y'all probably thought the same thing. Why do I mean, I'm done.
Yep.
Why do I need to hang out here? Had an old timer tell me once, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. So if you're not willing to dedicate your time now, we're building that muscle for you to give a hoot. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it also has this psychological effect of an immediate respect for the program.
Yeah.
You know, when you show up to something that formalized, there is no part of you that thinks this is phoned in or, you know, is not going to get the job done. I think trust in military training is something that is just one of the things we do extremely well across all branches. I can't imagine there are trainees out there that don't think they're getting the best training in the world when they go through this.
Yeah,
I
agree.
had a really early experience with that. If I can go back for a minute. After my freshman year, I got a chance to go parachute out at the Air Force Academy right out here in Springs. It was a part of their free fall course where they train you for 2 weeks in a ground trainer and then throw you out of an aircraft alone. It's a pretty amazing program, actually. It's still going on. I jumped out of that plane on my first jump ever by myself, and I got a line over, which those who know parachuting know is not fun. So the line had twisted over the parachute, tied it into basically a propeller turbine.
Yeah, a little bow tie.
Yes, and it was just I started spinning. So like my legs are sideways as I'm looking out. I'm like, this is not what I saw in the videos. I remember this is bad. That's about all my mind could get to at that time. And the instructors on the ground, they will not tell you what to do because they're afraid that everyone else is going to hear the same radio and jettison their chutes. Right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right.
10 cadets fall onto the ground with no parachute. So all they'll say is check altitude, check altitude, check altitude. And that's all. I still remember.
You still got it. Does it in your brain?
I am there right now. This was 25 years ago. I'm there. So what blew my mind about it is, 19-year-old me falling in a spin on my first jump ever. And it just happened, right? I just did what I was supposed to. I still remember the checklist: throw arch, look, pull arch, check, Talpac. I still remember jettisoning that chute. Yep. Yeah. And then popping the second one, and everything worked out. And I landed for that. And I was like, I will trust the Air Force's training for the rest of my life.
Yeah. It's incredible to think about how they bring in people who've never even flown an airplane commercially, put them in a thing, tell them this is what you're going to do. I remember the Army going, you have under 4 seconds to make a call, and you're like, 4 seconds. I can't even do anything in 4 seconds. But that training gets embedded in you. Then you just go in 4 seconds. Check out. Do you remember what altitude you were before you made that call?
I was probably, I want to say we jumped at 4,000.
Oh man, you don't have a lot of time.
Yeah. No, I didn't have a lot of time. That's probably in the twos before it was time to act in here, right? I don't know. That was 3 years in my mind, but it was probably about 5 seconds.
But it sounds like that kind of was like the seeds of just understanding how incredible that training is, right?
Yeah.
Just that muscle memory kicks in.
That trust stayed with me all the way through the Thunderbirds, all the way through. I don't think I've never had a period in my time in the military where I haven't had faith that this system that's been there for hundreds of years, that they have this figured out, and that, yes, there are evolutionary changes that you can make as you grow organizations forward, and you better pay attention to the tradecraft of what's come before, because there's some pretty good lessons in history that the institution has learned. Maybe not the individuals, but the institution has learned it. There are reasons we do what we do.
And keeps it locked in. Yeah, that reminds me just we were talking about my wife, Kelsey, who is a logistics and high aerial delivery parachute. She ran the whole parachute facility afterward. And it's the institutional knowledge, and it's also the fact that man, we really treat the craft seriously.
Yes.
Anytime we did a training jump, if my recon platoon were going out there doing a training jump in Alaska, her crew is down there filming the whole thing. And then afterwards, they watch film and go, how did every parachute exit out? Yep. Oh, that one was weird. That didn't open in like a full balloon like we had thought. That static line took a little longer to go deploy, and then they go back and they refine.
Yes.
That's constant. It's just something in the private sector. You don't see a lot of film watching to make sure it's just done with, like, we're already doing it well since the days of World War II, dumping into D-Day. What else do we need to learn? No, they're still out there learning.
Yeah, you nailed it. A debrief, right? It's so important to our culture and so just inherent in it. This concept of debrief, like, yeah, the event's over. That's not where the learning happens, though.
Yeah.
The learning happens when you pull it apart on tape and you think about those lessons and you visualize what you're going to do next time to fix that. And when you do that over and over, it just sinks into who you are.
Yeah.
I debrief my kids after baseball. They hate it, but they're learning. It's important.
They'll understand why one day, man.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're riding in the Texan T-38, right?
Yeah, T-38.
And then, like, maybe before we kind of go into that progression there, I'm curious, how soon do you jump in an aircraft when you're starting flight school? Or is it academics for a long time?
It's academics for about a month, and then a lot of simulators.
Okay.
And then you jump in an aircraft. I'm going to peg it at about 2 months after showing up. It's not that long because some of that's in processing and just, figuring out how to live on your own. And then you're in an airplane. I think my first solo flight was not too far after that. They get after that very quickly, so that you fly with an instructor for a couple of rides. And actually, all the fighter courses I've been in hindsight, have the same philosophy of, like, the faster I can get out of your back seat and give you that confidence.
Yeah.
To what I would call, like, disaggregate those feedback loops, because when you're flying, imagine it's like anything, but when you're flying with someone else in your back seat, your mind never really figures out, hey, is that him helping me or am I doing this?
Yeah, you're right.
And so the sooner we can get that guy out of the back seat, you get this instant confidence surge of, all right, I'm alone up here. I have to figure this out. And look at that, I did.
Yeah.
And so now you're like, okay, I am a pilot. Like, I may not be good, but I can fly this machine now.
It's funny when you take the training wheels off, too, how much you, like, actually have to ride the thing now.
Yes.
Yeah. That's incredible. So you go out there and you're jumping in this aircraft, flying on your own at some point.
Yep.
Do you find that the folks, like, how big is a class usually?
30-ish.
Okay. How important is it to have a natural aptitude, either mechanically, or do you find some folks could have none and the Air Force is just that good?
We've never figured this out. And I say that because I think we're constantly trying to figure out how to find the next generation of pilots.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you take an ROTC class or an academy class and slim that down to the right couple of people who are going to make it to those pilot slots? It's not easy. And, currently we correlate it to academics, athletic ability, some of the things that you can measure. But I believe there's more to the human psyche than just those measurables. In fact, this is something that this is written nowhere. Okay, this is my own brain trying to process this. I think there's a third type of intelligence, and I'm not sure we're tracking it. So you've got IQ. That makes sense to everybody.
Yep.
Raw intelligence, your professors solving problems with lots of time. You've got EQ, emotional intelligence, and I think we all understand that. That's relatively new, right? In our understanding of the human mind, but EQ, I think we're well established on that. That empathetic ability. Operational intelligence. I'm convinced it's a thing. I'm not sure how to measure it. I think we see it in life. I think we see it in operators. I think we see it in sports people, right? Like, so you look at, like, the decision span that a quarterback has to make a play. At any given time, they're going to have 20 to 30% of the information they wish they had to make that decision, and they make a decision, and that decision drives the fight.
Yeah.
That is a thing. I don't know how to train it. I know the military trains it very well. It's very hard without team sports to identify that, I think, in recruits. How do you get at somebody's operational intelligence? But where I'm going with this is pilots who succeed in pilot training have this combination of that triangle, in my opinion, where they've got the intellect to get through the academic part of it. They understand their aircraft intuitively. They have the emotional intelligence to understand what's going on around them. Mm-hmm. You're never alone in the military. Yeah, you have a team at all times. It is critical that you understand, hey, is their heart rate up right now? Are they breathing hard on the radio when they're talking? how's my wingman doing over there? Like he may look good. The jet looks rock solid, but he may be struggling.
Or even we were at a barbecue last night and it seemed like him and his wife were off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Now we're going out on mission. What's going on there?
Yes. Yeah. And then I think ultimately the skill that you're going to take to combat with you is that operational intelligence of having, you think about the air battle today. You've got 100 jets, surface air missiles are firing all over the place. Half of them are stealth. You are not going to have the information you want. No matter how good our sensors get, you are going to be guessing at what the enemy just did. Yeah. And you're going to have to make a decision and drive the fight without perfect information. And I think that is what I would define as operational intelligence in our world. Some combination of those three things makes a good pilot.
Yeah.
Hard to find, hard to measure.
Hard to measure. It's kind of an it thing. Yeah. It seems similar to the way you think about like really great builders or entrepreneurs.
Yes.
They have the ability to fill a gap.
Yep.
And to kind of almost will a bridge into an existence.
Yes.
I've heard it also say they have a way to shine a light in the darkness where there is no light bulb available. And to them, they can make it clearly in a way to will a team into going, yeah, I mean, if they believe it that clearly, then I guess that is. And the reality is it doesn't exist yet until those people, it's kind of a catch-22. It feels like that. It feels similar to that. I've thought about that as well. Like it's almost that ability to bridge the non-existent.
Absolutely. You're right. And it's other than having done it before.
Yeah.
It's very hard to know if the person that you're talking to about bringing onto a team has that ability.
No, totally. Man. It's almost an in practice only, right?
Yes. Yes.
Hard to make. When you figure it out, please, man, you probably will have your career ready to go for the rest of your life.
Closest I can get to it is, and I'm sorry, I'm going to dive into a flight control analogy here for a second.
No, please. This is a pilot episode.
When you watch a new pilot fly a manual aircraft, they have large inputs and long feedback loops.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to go left. Nothing's happening, nothing's happening, nothing's happening. Oh no, now I have a really high roll rate to the left. I want to go right. And you counter that, right? So very long spans, very long feedback loops. You get better, and what you notice is good pilots have pulsed inputs all the time. Not because they're trying to move the airplane, but because they're trying to be in control of when that airplane moves. They are creating their own feedback loops. Amazing to watch your mind do this. When you give somebody an aircraft for a while, they realize that this, sitting still, that's actually not a fun place to be, because then other forces are driving your jet to roll, pitch, and yaw. But if you're constantly driving that jet, then you're in control. You are in complete control. And if you watch any pilot, commercial, private, or military that's really good at it, they are driving that feedback loop themselves.
They're constantly creating a world that they want to be in.
Yes.
That's cool, man.
You get into now highly digitized flight controls, F-16, F-35. F-16 was the first to do this, and it's just advanced since then. And now your feedback loops are like 1,000 hertz. For basic flight controls, you're talking 1,000 samples a second.
Wow,
that it's just constantly doing. So even our machines are doing this, because that's the way you drive inputs. What you're talking about, I believe, for people who have that operational mindset, who can create and who can bridge and move things forward, I think you're looking for people who drive their own feedback loops, who are like, you know what? I've got 10 different directions I could go right now, and I don't know which is the right one. And the only way I'm going to find that is by picking one. And I'm going there until I find out I can't. And then I'm going, okay, well, now I've learned from that experience. Let's drive a feedback loop slightly this direction, and let's see what happens.
Yeah.
I think that's the mentality. It's hard.
No, I think you're right, man. I think there's it's such a cool combo. It's such a cool aspect, because I think it applies across the world, just about how those things, which seems so mystical, I think, when you're looking at it. Yeah. Because you can identify when someone has it. Like, they're just doing the thing. I agree with you. It's really hard to measure. It reminds me of some training that I imagine the Air Force got some too. The Army does some things that on its nose doesn't feel applicable at all.
Yeah.
And I think I went back and kind of talked. Ranger training is one, for example, that when I went through, we were doing stuff in that first week that I wasn't really sure, like, was it just hazing? Like, I don't know what this was for. As I've had Ranger instructors and friends go back and go become kind of the other side of that coin and facilitate the training, it's interesting to hear their feedback about courage.
Yeah.
So, which I think plays into what you're talking about. And it's not only just, courage to speak up and stuff, but it's this courage to pick. And I remember many a times, even there's this long beam to make you climb, and you kind of have to go across this long beam over a pond. Really, the worst thing that happens, you fall off, maybe you hit yourself on the way down, you fall into this pond, you got to do it again. And I remember you'd go and they had this weird staircase in the middle of it. Again, I was like, is this hazing or what is this for? And you're doing this literally on day 2 or day 3. It's like, this is not what I thought Ranger training was going to be about, walking over this little obstacle course thing. And I remember they make you do it over again until you did it as if you were walking down the street. Had nothing to do. They wanted to just see, are you able to do a thing? Not just do a thing, but do a thing a certain way.
Yep.
I don't know if that resonates at all with you, but that component of courage is something I think the service teaches well, or at least measures, or at least assesses for.
It does. I mean, combat is going to force that because the enemy gets a vote. And I love that idea of the courage to pick combined with the rote basic skill set to just react.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're going to get driven to or what you're going to drive towards. But when you're there, you can't be thinking about putting one foot in front of the other.
No.
The basics have to be absolutely locked.
Yeah. It's locked, and it's also, I mean, as an officer and as somebody who's leading as a leader, not only just as a leader, but somebody in the military says you're a leader for the rest of your life, like whether you like it or not. It's also being able to will a team behind you to follow. That's probably even trickier.
Yes.
You're like, I know where to go. I can will it. But it's like, where's the other people behind me? That needs to go do the thing. So I think that's part of it.
Yeah.
Speaking of willing, I'm curious, like, so you get through flight training.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about, there's 2 things on my mind. One is the aircraft either picking or getting assigned.
Okay.
So I'm curious what happens there.
Yeah.
And then you got to tell me about call signs, because I think that's an interesting world. Even as an Army dude, we have call signs, but our call signs actually belong to the organization.
Yeah.
Like, I don't pick my call sign, whether it was Red Chaos or Apache, all the call signs I've had actually belong to the seat, not to me. Right. I don't carry it with me when I leave. It stays with the seat, whereas y'all do. So whatever you want to pick first, how the jet goes or how the goes, but it's kind of I love the pageantry and the fun of all of it. So whatever you can give us an inside look on.
It's good. The call sign one's really good. I'll start with the jet one. I think that's actually a little bit simpler in ways. As you go through pilot training, you start to learn who you are as well. And certainly I think a lot of us arrive on day 1 and go, I want to be a fighter pilot.
Of course.
I saw it on the TV once. So that's obviously what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Thank you, Tom Cruise. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
The reality is you discover different skill sets within yourself as you go through pilot training. Yeah. And some people are really good at instruments and really good at keeping an aircraft stable, and maybe not so good at formation flying. And others are just like, formation, scariest thing imaginable. But you know what? I like this.
I'm all right.
This is fun. Yeah. And I like the aerobatics. And so you start to kind of pick a path. And about halfway through pilot training, you select either T-38s or T-1s at the time, which is a big airplane. So that's going to lean you towards C-17, C-5.
You're a cargo pilot.
KC-10, right. Cargo, tanker, AWACS, really great jobs. They're just very different. Mm-hmm. So for me, I went T-38s, which meant I was going to go fighters or bombers. And then when you down select from there, you have this big night called drop night, where all of your performance comes together, and you are given an aircraft. And you've put in what's called a dream sheet.
Okay, I was like, do you get to you act like you're going to pick what you want?
You're surrounded by pilot training has all the different aircraft types in it, because you have instructors that come back from their world in the Air Force to teach those 22 to 24-year-olds how to fly. And so you get stories about all the different jets, and every one of them, this is what I noticed right away, every one of them thinks their jet is the best thing in the world.
Of course.
Which is good, right? Which is a good thing. It's like, and so that whatever path you pick, it's going to be your path, and it's going to be great. But you still have those childhood dreams stacking up. Those which instructor was more influential. So I wanted to fly the Strike Eagle. Like I wanted the one that did it all.
Give me why. What was the thinking behind it?
I mean, it is just a
other
monster.
Than it's iconic, man.
Big 2-engine fighter. Very fast, Mach 2.5, carries a ton of air-to-air weapons and a ton of air-to-ground weapons at the same time. It's just like in fact, the call sign for the jet in fighter weapons school for the F-15 is Haas. And it's a very appropriate
Yeah, man.
name for that aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
in
big.
theater. We always love when dude when F-15, because I was like, we basically got a buffet boys to pick from on that jet, man. Like you can pick whatever you want.
Yeah, that F-15's philosophy is very offensive. It's, stealth was starting to happen back then, but it wasn't well established.
Yeah.
But I mean, at the time, even after stealth was well established as a fighter technology, the F-15E's philosophy has just been, I don't care if you see me because I'm armed to the teeth, and
good luck.
Let's go. So it is a great airplane. I loved everything about it. I loved the way it looked. I loved the mission, the fact that it was involved in not just air-to-air combat, but also the air-to-surface missions.
Yeah.
From close air support of you guys to deep strike and interdiction to everything you can imagine a fighter jet doing. It did it.
Oh, it's this story. And for those, if you can see it, it's this silhouette here with your call sign. But so it sounded like you got the aircraft. Was there any kind of tense? Like, you don't know what you're going to get, right? There's no even probably clues ahead of time what that looks like.
The clues are just meant to be mean. So they'll do things like there are 26 engines in this drop. And so then everyone's like, all right, well, if it's one B-52, that's 8. So,
that's what they mean by engines?
Yes, they literally are like, so you're like, well, it could be 3 F-15s and, 11 F-16s and, one.
Because it's not an even, not every class gets a whole different spread,
Totally.
right? Because of the needs of the Air Force.
That's exactly right. In fact, there are entire classes in history where everyone got heavies.
Wow, man.
Everyone. They didn't allocate a single fighter sometimes. So you just don't know. And so I was very, very happy that night. That I got the Strike Eagle.
I mean, you go up there and they would like announce it in front of everybody.
It's behind you on a screen.
You. Okay,
so
and you're looking.
You're looking at the audience, and they then they pop the screen up behind you, and you kind of the first thing you see is everyone's faces. And,
I bet you there's some faces like, oh crap.
Yeah. Well, you got these mixed emotions because if there's someone else out there who wanted that too, and then it's behind this kid, they're like, oh, the odds just went way down. Because there's not a lot of multiple drops. Yeah. You don't see the same aircraft.
How many 15s came out in that class?
Just one.
Holy smokes, man! How many fighters? What was the split? Do you remember?
Yeah, let me see. We had I think we had 3 F-16s that came out of it, 1 F-15E, and then a B-1. Which was really cool. That's a really cool plane.
Really cool plane. We love hearing call sign Bone.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
over the theater.
Big swept wing supersonic bomber. So that one's cool. And then we had actually quite a few that came back immediately as instructors.
Interesting. You can do that right away.
T6.
Okay.
Yes. It's called a first assignment instructor pilot. And it's those guys did very well in the class. So that's not a punishment. It's quite the opposite. It's like, hey, you are good. You're going to be a great instructor. We've got a chance for you to actually continue right here on site, but now as an instructor of that thing you just came out of.
Wow, interesting.
And then you'll get your drop later, about 2 years later.
Prolong that stress a little bit longer. Yeah,
that is the downside.
Yeah, man. Do you have, maybe before moving to call signs, I'm curious, is there a personality type that usually fits the jet? Like, when you see someone with a 15, you're like, they're probably like this versus somebody who's flying something else.
There are absolutely rumors of that being true. I'm not going to say it isn't true. I think and even between, there are different types of F-15. Yeah. The F-15C is an air-to-air only light gray version of the F-15, and they spend every minute of every day learning how to kill other airplanes. Yeah. And they are very good at it. So that is a certain mentality. Yeah. And then the Strike Eagle is much more, I don't know, interestingly, it's a little, they're pretty cerebral, I find. I think it's because they're trying to master multiple mission sets, and you also have that crew component. The F-15E is unique like that. You do have the backseater in the F-15E, the weapons system officer, or the Wizzo. Yeah. And they're amazing. And so, you are working in a crew concept in a Strike Eagle, which you are not in an F-15C. Same thing in an F-16 single seat.
Yeah.
So there are
so fascinating,
absolutely personalities that come with those. And then of course the culture perpetuates that.
Oh, as you live it gets worse of that.
Yeah.
Who is the most surfer chill type of pilot usually?
Ooh.
Like if you met them somewhere, you might go, they kind of sound like a little bit of a hippie to me. Like they're just, or like they go like surfing down in California, like real relaxed. Because as an Army guy, we almost think pilots are always intense.
Yeah, it's work hard, play hard concept.
Yeah.
It is very much alive in all of the fighter attack communities.
Yeah.
Who would the most chill be? That's tough. It might be the Strike Eagles.
Oh, really?
It might be the Strike Eagles.
You strike me like you know a lot, but also you just also are very approachable, easygoing. Those kinds of things.
I think the crew concept brings that to life in that
get
community.
along for a long
You
time.
have to get along. You literally have to. You'd be sitting 10 hours in a single. You can't go to the bathroom. You're sitting in that jet with that one other person behind you. You got to learn how to talk to people.
Yeah. Now, talk to me about your call sign. Specifically how you got Astro, but how anybody gets their call sign in the Air Force.
Yeah. Let's talk about the why behind it first, because I think that's actually really interesting. So why do we have these call signs? Well, a lot of it is the debrief.
Okay.
We have a really important concept in air combat operations, really fighter aviation, and I would imagine it propagates through most of the Air Force. You have no rank in a debrief. I don't care if you are the full bird colonel wing commander. If you messed up, you're going to get debriefed on it harshly.
Yeah.
And so we have this almost separation of church and state that goes on, right? Where you walk out of the debrief room and you are the wing commander of the base, and it's respected salutes and yes sir, and you call them by their rank and last name, and that respect is there. But you when it's flying time, you are number 2. And if number 1 has some things that they need to say to you, they're going to say that. And so we try to kind of bring everyone to the same level. And I think that's where the call signs really seeped into our culture and became just a thing. And to answer your question, we do also have call signs associated with aircraft types and formations. So
really?
So when you talk about Afghanistan, we were dude. We were always dude and a number. That meant Strike Eagles were overhead.
Yeah.
Vipers were Viper. So we have that jet call sign, but we are also individually known by what we actually call our name, which is
that's your name.
It's our you get
Astro
named in a naming ceremony.
At flight school or where?
No, it is much later. You have to mess up first. So once you are established and mission qualified in your fighter, so not just initial training, which is another 9 months in the F-15, for example, then you go to your first fighter squadron. For me, it was the one on your coffee mug, the Chiefs, 335th.
Very cool.
And those are the guys that name you after you're mission qualified. So once you're fully mission qualified in the jet, then you've had plenty of opportunities over about a year to mess things up. And then you have this naming ceremony where your entire squadron surrounds you, and they make you play some games, and they put some names on a board, most of which are fake. And then they ask you your opinion, and you don't have one. Just to be very clear, like you should not have an opinion about the name. And if you do have an opinion, you're going to get booed heavily.
Yeah.
And then you'll be provided some opportunities to remove names with beverages, but it's one versus the rest of the squadron. And so you can drink one off, but anyone else can drink it back on. So remember, there are a lot of fake ones up there that you really don't want. So at the end of all of this, they sing a song and give you your name, your call sign, and it stays with you, with very few exceptions for the rest of your life.
Wow.
So we do have a couple of rules, like you need to fly it in combat, to make it stick.
Yes.
And then once you've done that, that's your name.
Man, so when you get maybe it's just kind of my small view of it. I've noticed most of y'all's Air Force call signs I know there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
But it also just seems like something you could carry without a whole lot of despair.
Yeah.
Are there some out there that are just like, man, that is not good?
Yeah. So, the Air Force has an unwritten rule.
Okay.
And when I say Air Force, I mean the community, the culture.
Yeah.
The Air Force culture has an unwritten rule that it has to sound cool. You have to be able to shout that call sign across the Nellis bar. Nellis is like Mecca.
Yeah.
It's where Red Flag, Weapons School, Thunderbirds, all that's in one place.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to shout it across the Nellis bar and it sound cool.
Okay.
But it's never about anything cool.
But it ain't cool.
Never.
Yeah, there's
ever. Of note, when we talk about cultures, the Navy has no such rule.
No, this is what I'm wondering. Dude, I've seen some like Dumbo or something crazy for the Air Force, I feel like, oh, there's got to be some unwritten class behind that.
Yeah. We try to make it an acronym if we have to. Anything that we can do to bring duality,
No, I can appreciate even more reason to become an Air Force aviator probably than Navy. Can you give the version of why you got it?
Yeah.
How you got it?
It's not flattering, but my first time taking off at night in an F-15E out of Seymour in North Carolina. And I dropped my night vision goggles. I was number 4 in a 4-ship. So now, for those who haven't seen the F-15E at night, the afterburners are as long as the aircraft. This is a monster plume of fire coming out of this airplane. So you take off at night. I'm the 4th jet to take off. Drop my night vision goggles down. I'm like, ooh, stars, planets. You've seen it. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And it turns out airplanes all look exactly the same. And so my number 1, 2, and 3 had turned left like they were supposed to go out over the water airspace.
Yeah, man.
And I did not see that turn. So I dropped my goggles on. I'm like, oh God, everything's the same. So I picked my flight lead out of the sky and started flying to that. It was a star. And I was just, you want to picture this F-15E in full afterburner, like screaming through Washington airspace, like trying to rejoin on a star that I wasn't going to get there. So
you're trying to get to the astronaut program.
That's right. Yeah. So I failed. So 70 miles later, I realized my mistake and was named Astro.
It's still a badass call sign, man. And
that's a good one.
I think most people kind of look at it and go, oh, that makes sense. He was going to go become an astronaut or whatever.
No.
Those are the things. No, it's Houston, Texas.
Acknowledging that would be most likely to make sure you don't get that call sign. You know what I mean? Like they're never going to be like, oh, that's your, good. Well,
you want to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's coming off the board.
Yeah. Exactly.
Thanks for sharing that, man. I love that. And I think it's a unique part of the culture. Kind of, we were catching up earlier about the things we just have kindred spirits about. It's one of the things about y'all's culture that we just, as an Army guy, just absolutely appreciate, man, is that camaraderie you have just with those things that permeate time. Like it's not, that's one thing I think in the Army, we have our combat patches we wear forever, if you're lucky enough to go, and that stays with you forever, but not a call sign. No. And that's cool, man.
Yeah, it really is your name. Like your friends' spouses call me Astro. Nobody really calls me Justin. Like my parents do still, sort of. It's my name. It's super weird, right? Like
super
it just,
cool,
it just
man.
takes over.
Yeah. Oh, love that. Okay, so let's switch some gears over to Time with Thunderbirds.
Sure.
Kind of moving over there.
Yeah.
But let me actually, I'm going to take a quick pause.
Yeah.
I'll actually, one story we were catching up on, I think is just a unique opportunity, and we'll just take it for what it's worth. We were kind of had at least some really quick overlap in theater together, which is really interesting.
Yep.
Probably will never happen again on the podcast. I doubt. I mean, especially from two different services. You spent some time out in Afghanistan, specifically involved in the Cop Keating thing, and just to kind of paint the picture for folks. That part of Afghanistan, highly mountainous, unforgiving, let alone climbing it. You can't even get radio waves through it to be able to communicate well with each other. And when we were ramping up in Alaska to go over to Wilderness, the other outpost, we had heard a lot and learned a lot in real time about Keating and just kind of what went down there.
Yep.
If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about kind of what, from your perspective, was going on in Keating. And I mean, you weren't just like, oh, I heard of it or I was at the airbase. You were literally in that major attack.
Yep.
Please tell me about it, man. Tell the folks about it.
Yeah. First, you can read about this battle in a book called Red Platoon. There's a movie about it. This was a big battle, and I'm not surprised that even right afterwards it was being taught in your world out of necessity. Yeah, I don't think anyone intended to do anything wrong out there. The outpost was made at the valley base of 3 giant mountains. Yeah. Pretty much the worst tactical situation you can imagine from a defensive position. Everyone has the high ground around you except you, smack in the middle with really no exit. And it was meant to draw the Taliban back out of Pakistan and give an outpost that's right there to deal with that. So it wasn't an accident that it was built in that disadvantageous situation. But man, for a long time everything was fine, and then one day it wasn't. And it was attacked by more than 300 Taliban forces with machine gun sights and mortar sights and discus sights up on the mountains, aiming straight down at these guys. I can't think of a worse tactical situation to be in at that point.
Yeah.
And when it kicked off, the valley's filled with smoke immediately. The radio situation out there was nearly impossible to communicate with, because as soon as you can kind of picture this vertical environment, as soon as the F-15 is over here, you're out of radio contact. Radios can't go through rock. So you had to always have somebody overhead. My role in that is I was, I was on alert that day. So I was not supposed to be in that battle, but the guys that had flown the day before, dude call sign, were still out there at the end of a mission. They were out of weapons, and this thing kicks off. And it was like 4 a.m., roughly speaking. And so we launch alert. My 2 fighters launch alert out of Bagram. It's a little under 10 minutes to get out there. And by the time we got there, the valley is completely full of smoke. You can't see a thing. So we're targeting. Normally we use that electro-optical system on the Strike Eagle called the Sniper Pod. It's really good, really high resolution, but we had to actually use our synthetic aperture radars to pick out the metal targets on the mountains, which are going to be your machine gun sights. Yeah. So that's important to the story. So you target off of this radar, and that's what feeds into your bombs. In this case, JDAMs, which once you release, they are not recallable, and they're going to go.
They don't got a little leash on it where
you
can't
re-steer a JDAM in flight. Whatever coordinates you fed that thing, that is where it's going. And one of the big advantages of the Strike Eagle at the time is that we could multi-target. So we would load multiple JDAMs with coordinates from what we found in our radar, our sniper pods, and then release them simultaneously to take out a whole bunch of positions at once.
Yeah.
And
for folks who don't know what a JDAM is, what is that?
Yeah, Joint Direct Attack Munition. Excuse me. So the JDAM is a GPS guided weapon. It was really innovative when it came out in the early 2000s. So this is a regular bomb, and on the back of it is a tail kit that listens to satellites and knows its own position off a satellite so that it can guide to the coordinates that you gave it.
Yeah.
So highly, highly accurate, but not re-steerable like a laser guided bomb, which you can actually just move with your laser and it'll follow your laser beam. Mm-hmm. This is not that. Once this one comes off the jet, it will shack the target you aimed it at. So you better aim right. It's kind of important to the story.
Oh yeah.
So we get over Cop Keating, and my 2 ship splits up. We've got radio relay from one of them, and I'm the attacking aircraft. So I'm out to the east, turning back in to release weapons. Now, the JDAM has a little bit of a release window. When you talk about a traditional non-guided bomb, you have to release at an exact point in space because it's going to free fall to the target. JDAM, because it has a little bit of steering ability, there's a little bit of slop in there, but it's not much. We're talking a couple of seconds, between the beginning and the end of your release window. So we were targeted. You can imagine the chaos. We're targeted to the 3 main machine gun sites that are hitting the valley at that time. And I'm about to release these weapons, and my jet goes through a massive hydraulic failure. Don't know why these things happen in airplanes, but my radar went down, my ability to land went down, my landing gear was stuck, my speed brake was stuck, my wheel brakes were stuck, and my ability to refuel was gone, which is not a very comfortable feeling over Afghanistan.
None of that stuff's important.
So,
yeah. Right.
So, and it, remember, this is a 2-seat airplane, so I've got Mule Keeley in my back seat, and to that point about the parachutes earlier, the training is just there, and the mentality is just there. So Mule and I silently, we talked about this later, with no words, we're analyzing every system on that airplane. Was the radar loss going to affect what we had just programmed into those bombs? Were these bombs about to come off the rail and go free fall, which would have hit the friendlies? Or were they going to not release because the hydraulics controlled the release circuit on the aircraft's wing? What was going to happen if we pushed that button? And what damage were we about to cause to these guys that are in the worst imaginable situation already? And when you play the tapes back, this happens in about 1 second, and you just hear Mule go, "You good?" And I go, "Yep." And then bombs away, and they hit. But that tape does not represent what was going through our minds.
No, I can only imagine.
We were just tumbling up there trying to think through the jet systems. Fortunately, came to the same conclusion at the same time that this was going to work, and these guys needed this more than the weight of the risk of not releasing it. Yep.
Why is it, and as I'm hearing you talk about it, like, why is your personal safety, how you get back to Bagram, how you land, why is that not coming through your mind? Why is it only about, hey, I need to get these weapons on there because these boys are getting pounded?
Yeah, you don't even think about your personal safety up there. And I bet you it's the same on the ground. You're thinking about your team members. We have a we have a sign at Bagram. When you walk out the door, it's right over the last thing you see as you run to your jets, and it just says the mission is an 18-year-old with a rifle. That's the last thing we go out the door with, and that is the mentality we stay with the whole time. You know, no matter how dangerous things get in the sky, it's not the same as what you're dealing with on the ground.
No, those boys up at Keating, I mean, it's funny. You learn it and you go, okay, that's probably not going to happen. And then, man, as soon as we got in the theater, it is a carbon copy over and over and over again. And if anything, the Taliban knows exactly why you're there.
Yep.
And they, in some ways, know a lot of your playbook better than anything else. The thing that I will tell you, man, sitting here right now, you know, as a thank you to, I can probably speak safely on behalf of everybody. And I know there's a mutual respect, but I will tell you, I think one of the best things about being and flying the red, white, and blue over there is the way that we have friends, not only just on the ground. Sure, I even had my West Point classmate as my platoon buddy. We both had our own reconnaissance platoons. He literally both the same outpost switching in and out. Like, it's just rare to go to college with a guy and then end up being there. But all our buddies up top, you know, in the sky, y'all. And I think there is we won't admit this at a bar, but I'll admit there is nothing that gives, especially as a leader on the ground, more breathing room. You know, it feels like a quarterback getting blitzed over and over and over again, and just like concussion after concussion. And there's nothing better than hearing, you know, your forward observer go, hey, sir, got a dude on station, 1 minute. Like, I mean, you want to talk about feeling like you can breathe? Because part of it is also just having you there and screaming down in the mountains lets the bad dudes know, like, my time to run, right? This is not a good time to be messing with these boys anymore, right? Because it's about to be over. Just thanks on behalf of all the guys down there. You know, it really does matter a lot. And that I didn't even know that y'all had that sign, running out and scrambling to your jets.
Yeah.
The way we all work together, again, kind of like brothers giving each other a hard time, you know, when we're at when we're playing. But when we're out there, man, it's like, I can talk junk on my brothers, but you build it, you know, don't touch them.
That's right.
You know, so just thanks for everything, Astro, and what you and you guys do out there.
Right back at you. And I mean, you know, we know where the risk really lies, and what you're willing to do, the courage it takes to put yourself out there and get back out there and march to the site again after something like that happens is remarkable. Yeah. And I don't know how you do it, but I agree. It is a sibling rivalry, which means there's a lot of love there, right?
Always, man. Always. So let's talk about some Thunderbirds. So you get done with obviously combat time, career, all this stuff, and you're still on your way to the goal is be an astronaut.
100%.
And yet you give that dream up to go take over this storied unit for sure, this organization that America knows dearly. Give me a little bit of reason why that happened.
Yeah. You bet. So going back, like, after that combat experience, you know, I went off to fighter weapons school, which is like our Top Gun. And then that was, you know, remember, you're supposed to be a test pilot to go to space. That was a key part of the story.
Yeah.
Well, I went the other direction. There's kind of a split path in the Air Force for fighter pilots. So you can either go to weapons school, that's Top Gun, but it's a little bit longer. And that's your high intensity, become the best instructor in the world, you know, leadership course, really. Really amazing course. That's at Nellis Air Force Base. 6 months, you become the best in your jet. And after that, what you're supposed to do is go on to leadership roles and become a tactical instructor that really leads at that upper level mission command out to like 100 jets plus, and teach other instructors how to be amazing. And then you go on, it's a leadership course, right? So it kind of, the trajectory of that one is fairly set. And then this other path is experimental flight tests, which you know, that's something you apply for around year 10, test pilot school. You learn to fly all the different things from rotary wing to blimps and everything. And you become an experimental test pilot where you're looking at the next thing. Also a really cool career path. And that's the one that has astronaut kind of loosely appended to that possible chain. So I had a really good leader, in that squadron that I was in that was downrange with you guys, called the Chiefs. His name was Gipper Bunch, and it retired as a 1-star very recently. And I remember him asking me what I wanted to do. when I was leaving the Chiefs. And I gave him the answer that I knew I was supposed to give, which is, sir, I'm going to go to weapons school. I'm going to command in the U.S. Air Force. And he was like, what else? And he actually brought in...
It's like he knew.
Yeah. So he brought in his group commander, John Ruby. I remember this conversation so well because they took the time to ask the question of, I understand that's the default answer. What else? And I was like, okay, I had gotten a master's degree to check that box to be eligible for test pilot school, to keep that dream alive while I was becoming an instructor in the F-15. And so I had an aerospace engineering master's degree. I was qualified, but I was just afraid to ask because you're not supposed to be able to do both. It's not a thing.
Sounds great. Yeah.
So I said, well, all right, I still have a dream of being an astronaut. I would like to pursue test pilot school. And they were both like, well, then do both. I was like, well, sir, that's impossible. They're like, to do both. And so they kind of gave me a path and
kind of broke something in your brain about how you thought about it.
Yes. That allowed me to go to weapons school and do that, come back as an operational test pilot instructor, which those are your weapons school grads that are doing that job, and then apply to test pilot school 3 years later, graduate from that as well. And so I did it. So I was in this really strong position, because at the time there had only been 3 people at
I was going to say, that can't be y'all got to count on one hand how many people do that.
Yes.
It's nuts.
It's pretty
man.
unique because it's meant to be split paths. So you really end up being this critical cross point between the warfighter and the design and experiments of aircraft that are going on at the same time. And, it was literally, you could count on 3 fingers how many people had done that at the time. Now, fortunately, we've made a few more since then. There's about 7 of us now.
Still not a lot, man.
It's growing. It's growing.
You doubled. As you would
right.
say in business, hey, we grew by 100%. 100% off of what number?
So I, from that point, when I graduated from test pilot school the first time, I only graduated once. I applied to NASA the first time right after graduating from test pilot school.
Okay.
And I was too young. I was in my lower 30s.
You knew it was a long shot.
It was a long shot.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a long shot. And that was the huge board. That was the 2017 board where they had 18,000 applicants on that one.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
man.
it was big. And it was right at the return to American space. We had been flying Soyuz for a long time. We were coming back to our own rockets. We were starting this development towards, truly going back to deep space. And so it was really exciting. So a lot of people applied to that board. And I was surprised. I made it to finals on that board. So I was down to the last 40 in the last round of interviews. And I didn't make that one. But I knew, I was like, that was a good sign. The long shot board, again, we got a chance. I mean, it's not, you never even come close to counting on that being something that your life's going to get to.
Yeah.
But you certainly can't help but notice, like, man, maybe this is possible after all. All right, so I go on for another 4 years because these astronaut boards are 4 years long. So they're 2 years total time, but then there's another 2 years between. So every 4 years, kind of on the Olympic cycle, they start again.
Wow.
All right, so in that time, I'd become a squadron commander of the 59th. It was like the dream squadron. I had about 10 of each fighter type. So I had 10 F-35s, 10 F-22s, 10 A-10s, F-15s.
Playground.
So it was like, and kind of a blank check to drive the fight and decide, talking to the warfighters, where to aim that test and evaluation to make these fighters as strong as they can be.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Amazing job. And so I can't tell you how conclusive that was for me when NASA board comes around again in 2021. And I'm like, this is a good point to say, Air Force, thank you. I did it all. I got to go to weapons school, test pilot school. I got to command like an incredible fighter squadron, good spot to transition over to NASA. And so I applied to that board, and as much as you can't assume that it's really possible, I was fairly confident that I had a chance, just because of the previous one.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is finally getting to where we're going here. So with that context, my friend Brick, who was the commander of the Thunderbirds at the time, called me up one day and said, "Hey, I want you to come over and think about taking this team." And I was like, yeah, no, sir. I've, I've got,
No
I've got my path. I don't know anything about air demonstration. I was not one of the kids that joined the Air Force because of the Thunderbirds. There are lots, right? There are lots of people who that's the thing. And that's,
It wasn't you.
The ultimate goal. That wasn't me. You don't know much about the squadron unless you've either been heavily impacted by it as a child or you've lived a day in their life.
Yeah.
That's important to the story. So they were right down the street from the 59th. I was the commander of the 59th. He was Thunderbird's commander. Same base, same flight line. The hangars were right next to each other. And yet I had never actually gone over to talk to him about what he was going through. And what he was going through at the time was this vision he had for a reform of the team. And I'm going to paint this picture for you because it's important. So prior to him taking over the team, for the last 3 years, they had 3 Class A mishaps, which means total loss of the aircraft. They had had a terrible fatal accident with Cajun. The commander leader had been fired, and the demonstration was not flying well. If you look at video photos from that era, it's impossible to decorrelate the distance they were flying apart from one another, all for the right reasons. They thought they were being safer. And they thought that, it's fine. The crowd can't tell anyway. We just need to fly close enough to make an impression. And they were flying the best show that they could. So none of this is a spear at previous teams. Every single team that the Thunderbirds have since 1953 has dealt with massive adversity in some way. What that team has to overcome to get their mission done. Every day is scary. There are no breaks. You fly twice a day. The weather's bad. You're flying anyway. And it is a no-fail mission with constant risk. And so that context, I think, is really important. So in that lens, Brick, as he had that down year in the pandemic where the demos were not flying, he had really started to think about reform. Cultures go in waves. It wasn't a decline. It was a wave. And, if you look back in history at any organization, even nations, I think you can find cultural waves. Yeah. Goods and bads, ups and downs, sometimes catastrophic, but it's a natural progression. And, things get bad enough that somebody goes, it is time to break glass and snap back to a different mentality. And that was him. So that was what he was trying to do, but he was running out of time. And that's why
you only get 2 years in the seat.
You get 2 years in the seat. And he had a third year because the pandemic downed the team, and it's completely impossible to hand that 70 years of tradecraft forward without a year of flying.
Yeah.
You can fly training all you want, but until you've seen the logistics trail of taking a team across America 4 times a week with, a C-17 full of 80 people and having to download 32 job types onto a civilian airfield and build your world in a day and then go fly.
Yeah, man.
Not something that you can just go, all right, let me give you my notes. Good luck out there.
Here's my little doc on there. Get a little Excel spreadsheet. You'll be all right. Yeah.
And so because of that, they extended that team a year. So he got a chance to demonstrate a couple of his concepts, and they were awesome. And here's how the story comes together. So Brick's got that going on. I told him, I got a plan. Sorry, I'm not the guy. But the more I got to understand what he was going through, the more I believed in what he was doing. He is an incredible leader. He's still active duty. He's still going. He really had the courage to break glass and to take a lot of risk, a lot of career risk, a lot of risk all the way, up and down the chain to try to build this team into something really special.
Yeah.
So that was what was going on when he asked me to take the team. I have this moment where I'm standing on the flight line and I've got 2 Mark Kellys in front of me. Okay. This is just you can't make this stuff up. I've got 2 Mark Kellys in front of me. One of them is Senator Astronaut Mark Kelly, who was on the flight line for my squadron to learn about an F-35 versus an A-10, trying to make a decision for Arizona.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have General Mark Kelly, 4-star Air Combat Command commander, who's just, an incredible fighter pilot leader career all the way up through 4 stars. And they're both there physically standing in front of me right now. And I'm looking at this going, this is weird. It's almost a manifestation of
Like fast forward in life and see what it's going to look like.
If you did everything right and
Yeah.
had all the luck in the world for 20 more years,
Yeah.
you might end up where one of these two superhumans are right now. And so that was a really interesting moment for me. And for some reason, that was the day that General Mark Kelly told me that I was going to take the Thunderbirds. And for some reason in that moment, I just knew it was the right thing to do.
Just a feeling.
It's just a feeling. Just a feeling.
Yeah.
Even though we were saying goodbye to, 39 years of the same goal.
Wow, man.
It was the right thing to do. And when I look back at it, it's hardest email I ever wrote was going back to my desk and writing to NASA to say I have to withdraw from this board.
Yeah.
Their response was awesome, by the way. The chief astronaut emailed me back and he was like, I won't quote him exactly, but he was excited. He was like, hey, it's a great decision. Like, have fun.
I can't imagine how it's not just like an idea you got. This is a childhood dream,
Yep.
right? That you are about to potentially permanently put on ice. You'll see that right into the distance. You'll be an old man one day and wonder about space. What about, I know at the time there was a feeling as you reflect on it, what are the things that go through your head about, in a way it's sacrifice. You're moving, and I want to talk about, it's really the ultimate reason I wanted to get you on after I watched the documentary. I thought to myself, what we're doing here with American Operator is exactly what you did with the Thunderbirds, which is reinstill this culture of selflessness and being most involved with the brand that matters the most, which is the American dream.
Yep.
More than anything else. How does that feel? I don't even know what to ask you in this moment. It's like those, I can't imagine. I'm just thinking about childhood dreams I had. If somebody told me that has to go away and the service is something bigger.
What's funny is and this is probably just growing up, but you think about the institutions a lot in that moment. No part of me was concerned about NASA being fine. Right. You were talking 18,000 applicants. They're all incredible people. They have a multi-year process to down select to like the very best of humankind. And they're very good at it. And they're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
Thunderbirds, maybe, just maybe, right place, right time. And so when you think about it from an institutional perspective, there was a chance to make an impact here, a big one, on the Thunderbird side and therefore in the Air Force and therefore in the country. Oh, by the way, let's not forget what 2020 and 2021 were like in America, right? It's one of the most divided times in history. Not the worst, but the pandemic was not good for us. And I think the pandemic combined with social media's divisive nature was almost catastrophic.
Yeah.
I think we still feel the effects. And when I saw what the Thunderbirds represented, looking at the history of the team, since 53, it was not founded to recruit. It was not. And this history, it really hit me. So I'm gonna tell you what hit me about it. It was the paint scheme. So when you look at the history of air demonstration in the United States, the Blue Angels were first. And they were first in 1946 for a very important reason, because in 1947, this new thing was about to happen called the Air Force.
Yeah.
And so, if you put yourself back there in history, you're afraid you're going to lose your air wings, Army, Navy. It's logical that this new Air Force thing was going to take it all. And so the Navy very deliberately made the Blue Angels as a way to remind the world, hey, naval aviation is a thing and we're really good at it. And you look at their paint job, blue and gold, Navy colors, huge U.S. Navy letters on the bottom of the jet.
Yeah.
It's still there. That mission's still there.
Yeah.
Okay, Thunderbirds, we didn't form until 53. And it was not a recruiting tool. We had if you look at it, the Thunderbirds are not blue and silver. They're not Air Force colors. We had no such problem. And it's only because naturally when people thought about aviation, you think about the Air Force.
The name.
Literally. So we didn't have that. Recruiting problem was not a thing for us. What we had was we were smack in the middle of the Korean War. We were starting to see this loss of trust between the American institutions and its people. This is not a super popular war, and things didn't really get better from there. And so we had this fracturing of trust between American institutions and the people. And so the Thunderbirds were created to bring that back together. to demonstrate the capability of American excellence. And so that is why the red, white, and blue paint schemes, and they have been since the very beginning. And if you look at the jets, you can see the mission right there.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows their Air Force, by the way. They just know that that's America's team.
Yeah.
And so when I started thinking about that in the context of the pandemic and in culture waves, it's like, there is a real opportunity to make an impact here. Because if we can get the team's ethos to be, we are going to create a beacon of human achievement, and we're going to do it in the name of service to something bigger than ourselves. That's a uniting force. That's something that will draw people together. Because I don't care who you are or how divided you feel. When you see human achievement in front of you, that is a good feeling. That's a very human feeling, and it unites us around that human achievement. And I think we see that in so many things that make America amazing, right? And the big ones being like professional sports, professional musicians. These are industries that are free to create and that generate billions in revenue.
Yep.
Because they are human achievement, right? And this is, I won't go down this rabbit hole, but I honestly think it's why Karl Marx was wrong about communism versus capitalism, is because his concepts were labor costs, labor costs, labor costs. And then we went and said, no, watch this. Watch what inspiration can do.
Yeah.
We can make money out of nothing by hitting a ball really well.
Yeah.
Right. It's huge. It's huge to me. And so, so now imagine the power of that human achievement uniting force, but also in the name of public service with a giving vibe. That was the aim. And that's what got me.
Hey, y'all, real quick. Check it out. This show, if you like it, well, we like you and love for you to give us a rating and a review. We read every comment, whether it's on Apple or Spotify. And here's the real reason why. It helps other Americans out there who are chasing their dream hear this message. And if you got a friend that you think could use a little inspiration and some of these words hit with you, please share this with them. All right, back to the show.
All right, man. So we're back from the break, Astro. I'm getting more used to calling you by that name. Now I know It's not a call sign, it's the name.
It's the name.
So now I'm feeling much more comfortable doing it. So especially I feel like maybe I've earned a little bit of understanding of it. Here's where I want us to go now. I think as really when I first watched the documentary on Netflix, first thing went to my brain, and literally as soon as they rolled credits, was he can help us with our mission. Yes, the Thunderbirds and all the things that go on technically. Sure, folks, really, please watch it. Please watch it, because you'll get a lot of that adrenaline pumping, a little bit of that more technical understanding. It's an incredible, incredible story. The thing that I really want to focus on here is really the culture building aspect.
Yeah.
And we kind of went into here right before the break. We went into, a lot of things Brick did, which is awesome. And I think there's a lot of sacrifice on your part for seeing that mission for what it was and saying, you know what, my turn to take the torch. I can make an impact here. Can you walk us through some of the things you did behind the scenes that maybe didn't make the film?
Yeah.
They were culturally meaningful. They kind of changed the way the Thunderbirds are and where they currently are today.
Yeah, you bet. So we knew we had to make everything harder, significantly harder. Training had to nearly double. I think I did the math on it. We trained 66% more than we had before. That's 66% more sorties, more maintenance, more work on the aircraft. Oh, by the way, we took it on the road. So for the first time, like my 2022 team, we were the first ones to, instead of training at our home base where it's comfortable, where the logistics is there, where the contingencies are easy, and where we know the terrain, we knew that if we were going to perform well on the road, which is the mission, we had to go on the road for training. Yeah. So we took the team to Spaceport America, which is the middle of nowhere.
Where is it?
It's in New Mexico.
Okay.
It's where it's a spaceport. It's a huge 12,000 foot runway, but what it's meant for is it was actually Virgin Galactic was launching out of there.
Interesting, man.
Yep. So you have this huge empty space. I'm talking the hotel was an hour and a half away. Nearest town was Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, which is not.
Is that what the name of the town is?
They do. Yes, it is. It was pretty remote, but we had to get somewhere where the only thing we thought about was flying airplanes, maintaining airplanes, and perfecting that show to really bring that mission focus. So bear with me. I'm going to go through just kind of a list of major changes, and I'll get to the why behind all of it. So we had to learn to live and work on the road. And so every 2 weeks we went to a new spot to train, new terrain, new density, altitude, new environment, new mountains, new everything, runway environment.
Just to build that comfort with that chaos a little bit.
Different. Yep.
Yeah.
With chaos. We changed, that was a significant impact on the families, by the way. Not an easy sell because normally, you change teams in November. That's supposed to be home time. November through the holidays up to March is supposed to be, we're busy, but we're busy at home. And this was now, we're busy and we're busy deployed.
Wow.
So big ask, right? Huge part of what we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the team had to become and stay, I should say, but really emphasize being a giving team. You cannot allow the celebrity aspect of the Thunderbirds to creep into your culture. And it's been there. This concept of, hey, town in America, you're lucky to have us. So roll out the red carpet and, let's make sure we've got the best amenities for the team because these are special people.
Wow.
But that's the exact opposite of the mentality that this team needs to have.
Yeah. And the Air Force, right?
Yes. It needs to be, we are lucky to be here for you. Everything we do, every second of that time that we spend in your town, you haven't seen us in some cases in 13 years. And we are here to show you that we are your Air Force. And I don't care if you ever sign up for the military, we are still your Air Force. And we're here to give to you. So not outreach like you would do when you think recruitment, but giving the way you would do when you think service.
Yeah.
That mentality was important. Right along with that, when, if you were to sit Brick and me down one day and say, hey, what was it? When you look at that 2000s block, when things started to drift, what was it? I have an answer. And that answer is self-promotion.
You said self-promotion?
Self-promotion. Through the bullhorn of social media. And I think this is important when you look at, between when social media really got going in the, 2008-9 range to this onset of culture creep of, I can fly really well live, but that's only 100,000 people that see that. But if I take one really good picture, man, that's millions.
Yeah.
The engagement. Look at the engagement. Look at the outreach. Look at you all these words that creep in. It's scary how insidious it is. And so what comes with that is this drift towards, okay, so excellence is now becoming secondary to outreach. And with outreach, well, look, I'm getting pretty famous. Like if I tweet something right now about how great I am and with a little cockpit video, like suddenly I've got 70,000 followers.
Yeah.
And so it's really addictive.
It's about looking good.
It's about looking good and exactly.
Interesting.
And so now let's unpack that a little bit. So, if I had to pick a point right before Brick started going, something is wrong, 2020 range, we would say that there was a concern of people joining the team to suck the life out of the team to build their personal brand, to then walk out of the Air Force and go become a famous person, right? Instead of this mentality that we had to return to of you are here to pour your life into the team's brand, to build America's brand, to build the Thunderbirds brand, to build the Air Force brand, and take nothing away. So this is, you talk about changes. We did not allow our team members to be on social media with the team's brand as themselves. Now you could push content out as Air Force Thunderbird 4, right? Because now you're building the team's brand.
That's going to stay when you
and
go.
That account stays.
Yeah.
But you could not push content out as
Justin Elliott.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that selflessness was, for that little bit of it, was very factual. It was like, hey, this, and with that application class that we brought in, those were the rules. And we made that very clear. You are not here to build your personal brand. You are here to build the team's brand. If that's not for you, see ya.
It's like the craziest thing to hear even you say out loud that like this hyper technical team, the thing that one of the unlocks was something that had to do completely with the spirit and the way that you think about, selflessness.
It was 100% that. And
That's nuts,
so
man. It's awesome.
I talked a little bit earlier about the weapons school.
Yeah.
And this is, it is a leadership course in disguise as a advanced fighter course. And the motto of the weapons school is be humble, be approachable, be credible. And that has never left me. Like when they drill that into you in this course, it is not about you. It is not about you. Humble, approachable, credible. That's the expectation.
I mean, that's a good rule for life.
And now when I look at the onset of social media, I can't think of anything that represents more the opposite of those values. There's nothing humble about a selfie. There's nothing approachable about anonymity. And there's nothing credible about platforms that reward extreme viewpoints over professionals, right? So if you look back, we had people applying for the team with a resume that was like, look how many followers I have. Imagine the outreach I can give you. Oh, by the way, we fly people sometimes, right? So this was another change that we had to make is we fly people in the back seats at the towns that we travel to. It's very tempting. And we get a whole lot of asks from, influencers. And we're like, yeah, look how many followers I've got. I've got millions. Like, look at the outreach I can bring you. We had to completely flip the script on that. And we did. And it was like a light switch off, light switch on moment where we were like, we are not flying that is not allowed anymore. And it was a commander decision with our public affairs officer. She was incredible at executing this and at being honest about what the opportunity cost was of this, but we executed it and it paid off. So we would fly people in the back seats that I didn't care if you had a brand. We had the brand, but that's the way we had to think about it. I didn't care if you had a brand. I wanted to see who you are. What do you do? What do you do for your town? What do you do for your community? What do you give to others? What values do you represent? Not how famous are you? And it was a complete flip, right?
I mean, that got to rub a lot of people wrong, man, right?
It sure did. We would get threats. It was not like violent threats, but threats of like, I'm going to use my brand to destroy yours. And I was like, okay.
Yeah. Obviously not the right fit then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Thank you for letting me know.
Thank you for validating my perspective on this topic.
How as a leader did you hold the line, man? I find that to be incredibly difficult across. I mean, whether you're the president of the United States or Thunderbird 1, immense amount of social pressure. I mean, there was a time where even as we were building this brand, you get voices from in and out that are just like, you got to do these clicky baity things. Yep. And I'm like, it just sounds antithetical to like what we're doing.
Exactly.
How can you not? I'm not going to be able to tell the team here all the time. I want you all to be able to look at yourself in the mirror at night. I don't really care about the rest. How did you hold the line?
Yeah, I had. I'm going to give a ton of credit to General Mark Kelly for this. Okay. So he's commander of Air Combat Command, and he's the one that hires Thunderbird 1. He gave me my interview with him was very one way. Yeah, I'm willing to reveal this now. I didn't talk much. He was like, "Here is what I believe in," and I was like, "I get it." And it was actually he had read a book that really hit him. It was actually about Ranger School, and he was talking about. I wish I could quote the book to you, and I apologize because I bet you can find it. But that he didn't really talk about the content other than this one moment. He had this moment when you're finished with your kind of graduation march and it's terrible, and you've been on the road out there sweating it out for a really long time, and I don't know if this is everywhere or if it's only at some of the schools, but he describes this flag at the end of it that says, "Remember, you joined us." And the point that he took from that and what he kind of hammered into me before I took command of the team is elite teams don't cave to social pressures. Elite teams have an identity and stick to that identity as social pressures wave back and forth around them. And that stuck with me so much, that concept of this is who we are, plant the flag, you joined us.
Hold the line.
Or don't.
Yeah, or don't.
but you joined us, and so this is the culture of this organization.
So badass, man. I mean, it's just what an incredible piece of mentorship right there.
It was huge. It drove everything I did from that point forward to have the confidence to know that my leadership was behind me, right? Like my 4-star general believed in what we were about to do, because we were about to do some pretty controversial things. We were about to fly closer, lower, tighter to the ground, tighter to the crowd. Objectively speaking, more dangerous in every way. We were going to deploy more. We were going to make people more tired. We were going to train harder. We were going to ask for more damage on the jets. And we were going to do it without any semblance of self-promotion being allowed within the squadron, which I want you to think about that. The risk of the general community who would apply for the team being like, well, then no thanks.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no thank you. You mean I've got to go work harder than I do in combat ops and I don't even get anything out of it, right? You can imagine that mentality. If it was there, we could have been in big trouble. So when I tell you this, and at the end of the movie, you actually see this in the credits, it's true. So the first year that we implemented these changes, we were worried. Brick was worried. I was worried. Were we ever going to have recruits again? Because the tendency when you're short on good quality applicants is to lower the bar, right? That's the tendency is, hey, I'm going to lower the bar. That'll give me more people. I'll lower the bar. That gets more people. Well, we went the exact opposite way. We raised the bar in every way. Everything from how you applied to the team to flying evaluations for the positions to 12-man interviews. Like, we really raised the stakes and made it clear that you were going to get nothing out of this on the personal side, but you were going to have the privilege of being a part of this elite culture. And so the first year we implemented that, we had we tripled the number of applicants we had ever had. And then the year after that, we went 14-to-1 ratio.
Wow, man.
So that told me everything I needed to know about people. We do run towards difficult. We do run towards excellence. And when we think something's achievable, we step away from it. Isn't that interesting? Like,
it's the weirdest thing, man. You're absolutely right. It reminds me of recruiting in the service, man. You get folks that get up there for these elite units.
Yep.
They don't go, the first thing they say is, look to your left and right. Most of you will not make it.
Yep.
And you go, I'm in the right place.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing?
Exactly. It's built into all of us to chase something impossible. I think that's the most special thing about humans. I think and maybe it's not all people. Maybe it's American culture.
Maybe.
Right? I think there is certainly in Americans that is amplified times 10.
It's so true, man. It reminds me of working in my last gig there. We had all services at that. And I love talking with the Brits and with the Aussies and just getting their perspectives on it. And as much as we also tease each other, the two things that always, almost consistently, every one of them said was, you Americans work at a pace and at a level that just is obscene. Like, none of our countrymen would even think it's normal.
Yeah.
But then the second thing they say, as much as they kind of bashed us for that, like, y'all don't know how to have fun. The second thing they'd say is, but I wouldn't want anybody else in the foxhole than an American, because if there's a will, there's a way, and they'll find it. And maybe it is our country. I'm not sure what it is, man. And it's one of those things that I see what y'all built with the Thunderbirds. From the outside looking in, and again, this is just my understanding of it, and hopefully it was a mission accomplished, but that's what I read from watching that hour and a half, a little over hour and a half, was just, that's where we are. There we are.
Yeah.
Like, we're not completely lost. Like, there's a group of people still believing that what built us is what will, keep us going.
I completely agree with that. Like, not because of what I did or what Brick did, but because of watching 32 job types and 150 people rally behind that.
Yeah.
And that told me everything I need to know. We're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
I think as soon as they understood the why, right, which I made a very prominent part of my change of command speech, like, things are about to change and here's why. And I talked about that paint scheme, why it matters, why we're not about recruiting. Recruiting is not inspiring. Nobody's like, cool, I'll go risk my life for recruiting. But they absolutely will risk their life for inspiration of the entire population. We're down to about 0.5% of Americans who join the military, and that's fine. We need people to do real things. Like, we have to. That's the whole point of it all. So the other 99.5% that are never going to recruit themselves into the military, they matter just as much, maybe more, arguably more.
Arguably more.
Arguably more. You have to have that. Our entire country is based on taking risk, putting yourself out there, generating feedback, and driving forward with that new feedback. That is our American way. Actually, Victoria, my wife, has my favorite quote, I think, ever. I remember this hit me so hard. We were talking about speed limit signs. And she was like, it is more American to do what makes sense than it is to follow any traditions of the past.
Yeah.
That is exactly who we are.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you think about progress in the United States, it is all based on going, yeah, we've been doing this a long time the same way. I'm doing it differently.
Yeah.
And let's see what happens.
It's that operational intelligence you talked about earlier. I think it's that ability to bridge the gap. This is kind of a culminating thought. I wonder just kind of how it applies to the Thunderbirds, but also just your career at large. I had an old commander one time it's funny what happens when you get out and then they start telling you things you just didn't know, because part of it is just kind of protecting that unity of command and that integrity. But when you kind of get to catch up afterwards, there's some things you get to kind of see a little bit behind the curtain of real humans making hard decisions.
Yep.
And I remember he said something to me that struck me. He goes, in combat, what I listened for was two people. Because I asked him sometimes why they would make certain decisions at headquarters based on what was going on the ground. And something told me that just struck me. He goes, two things. Anytime something bad was going down, I'd always go, who's the ground force commander? Who's the guy on the ground?
Yeah.
And then let me listen to how they're on the radio. He just wanted to see. Those two things told him enough about what's next. And he goes, and the right person, he goes, if I knew it was a certain person and they had a certain demeanor about themselves, they were going to figure it out. I didn't need to do a whole lot. Does that resonate with you?
100%. I used to listen to my team on the radio. There's a reason. For those who don't know, Thunderbird 1 basically sings a cadence for the entire show. And it's a challenge response cadence. So like when they are literally feeding back on the pace of my voice. Because you can't react when you're in the diamond that tight. There is no room for reaction. They have to be pulling with me, not pulling based on what they see. So if I'm doing a loop, like I will sing them a little song. And I'll say, nose coming up 430, right on into 4. There's 4. And that's the G.
Are you kidding? This is the
No kidding. That is going on the entire time in the show. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Now, here's why. It's not just about that proactive simultaneous impact that we need to have.
Yeah.
It is about feeding back on how we're doing. So number 4 threat in the movie has to respond to those calls. And I can tell. And then there are points in the show where they all respond, will be 2, 3, 4. And I can tell how it's going by their vocal inflection. And if they're having fun and life's good, then and the turbulence isn't too bad, then my team this was kind of our thing. We would pick up the accent of whatever region of the country we were in. Hilarious. Like it was hilarious. Like I'd hear the New York accents behind me and I'm like, we are doing it. And then sometimes same place, same show, but now we're dealing with weather, turbulence, things are getting bad. You know, we had a rough morning with logistics, jets are breaking, stuff like that. And you just hear that like normal deadpan voice and they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. Yeah. And they're in position and they're responding. But it's different. And now I know, all right, this is not the day to push it. Like this is the day to get through this.
Yeah.
And fly the best we can, but it's not the day to push.
What do you, for those out there, a lot of the folks that tune into the show, they're either in the mix right now, running some small business in America or maybe contemplating doing that. What advice do you have for them just as they think about how to think about their people? You talked about it with hearing them. Yeah. But what I hear here is a guy who just deeply cares about his people in 100%. Addition to which is so breaks your brain. Like, this is a military commander. Don't they just issue orders and go? And I'm hearing something completely opposite. Yeah. Any advice for folks out there running their teams about maybe how to think about it a little bit better?
Yeah. One, and this is certainly true in an elite flying organization, so I bet you it's true everywhere. You need your people more than they need you. You take Thunderbird 1 out and they'll find another one. but you destroy the culture of that organization, and that's it. It's done.
Yeah.
And unless you're leading an organization where you think you can do all the jobs, the logistics, the guy on the radio, microphone, getting the team out there in advance, maintaining the jets and flying the planes, like you are just a cog. Even as the boss, even as the leader, you are a cog, and you need them more than they need you. I'm a huge believer in the upside down pyramid concepts, where the leader supports the team and not vice versa.
Absolutely.
And you give until you can't anymore. And I know for all of you who are starting a business or going out on your own, I understand the risk. I understand the guilt that you probably feel trying to balance that sense of purpose, doing something bigger with what you deal with back home. I've been there. It's something you wrestle constantly. I don't care whether you're dating or whether you have kids. It's the same issue, right? It's like you want to be the best at what you're doing professionally. You want to be the best at what you're doing at home, for your significant others, for your family. I think that the right balance will convey to your family and your people that sense of purpose matters. I have a couple other thoughts on, for what you talked to me earlier about what this show is about. It's people reaching out, taking a little bit of risk and getting after something that they build themselves. And I can't think of anything more fulfilling. Whether you're building within a military organization or whether you're building on your own in a tree fort in your backyard, like building is fun, fulfilling, and rewarding. And I'll share with you something that I have noticed about myself, and I think probably everybody, and that is that you are tired from what you are about to do, not from what you just did. So think about this. Like, what's a better day, Friday or Monday?
Friday.
It's obviously Friday, right? Well, you should be exhausted on Friday from your week of work, and Monday you should be fully recovered from your weekend, right? But that is not how our brains work.
So true, man.
And it's true with anything. Like, it's hard to put on your shoes to go for a run. You feel awesome when you finish a run. This is we as humans are that. We are tired from what we're about to do, not from what we just did. By knowing that, I think it really helps you step out and take that chance on doing the next thing, because you know that the dread that you're feeling is that exact concept we just talked about. It's that anticipation of the thing you're about to tackle, which seems impossible at the time. But just by knowing that, you know that as soon as you get into it, it's going to be amazing, and it's going to feel better every day. I think that's an important concept for us all to grasp about ourselves.
I've never heard it said that way, but it's so daggone true. And yeah, it's almost hard to explain to somebody why hard, fulfilling work is the way to go, and why they're feeling drained at that cubicle in a high rise somewhere, whatever. And I think there's a world where we need those folks, but I think there's a wave of great. I mean, we talk about honoring the past with generations, even coming from the war, starting these small businesses in their towns and building. And I see that every day we go across this country, and we see people. To them, they would sit here right now next to you, Astro, and go, "Oh, what you've done is like I've done nothing compared to that." Mm-mm. Yet I know for a fact you'd sit here right now and going, "That's the American way. It's how you build up your community, even if it is for that small group of folks. Your church, the local school."
Yes,
man. That is why like you and I spent, and you continue to spend a good part of your time sacrificing, life, to protect that. That's one of the most important things in this country.
We are driven by a sense of purpose. It is what gets us through the day. I believe that. Transactional, it's not motivating. It doesn't work. That leadership style doesn't work. I don't think. There are times when you need to get there, to get people taken care of, but you are driven by a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be yours. And I think what you are pushing is so important for people to hear, because you're telling them to go take that chance and really build something that's theirs. With sometimes when I talk to other military people, we don't always have a say in what the job is. Yeah. Sometimes we get stuck in a spot, and sometimes that spot is kind of a defensive spot where you're literally sitting to watch, waiting for something bad to happen.
Oh yeah.
And so even in that situation, my advice is find something in your life to play offense with. whether you pick up an instrument you've never tried before or just go find something to motivate yourself outside of work, that's okay. But you have to have a sense of purpose and that feeling of forward motion to feel good, to be happy. It's just who we are. So what you're advocating for is even more special.
Well,
And that's to walk out there and take that risk and really take ownership of something. I think it's incredible.
well, I appreciate you reflecting that, Astro. And I'll tell you, even with the time I spent in the service, it feels like I spent another small lifetime looking for, is this still possible? And I think for a lot of us getting out of the service, you just wonder is there a world out here that feels the same way I do when I was wearing the uniform? And I'll tell you, man, we just got done running all over Colorado visiting business owners. It's alive and well. They're just really quiet. They're really humble. They don't talk loud.
Exactly.
Some of them don't even have an Instagram account, believe it or not, people. They just don't. They just don't. Yet that entire town, they're beloved. You know, they work hard. They help their friends. They provide food. They had a wildfire down in kind of the Vail Valley. These guys are feeding first responders. It's just what they do. They don't think second about it. In their mind, they're like, no, these guys are sacrificing. But you look at what they've built. I mean, they're humble business owners. They're barely putting food on the table, and yet they're going to go do that. So, yeah, I think the country's in great hands. Yeah.
I totally agree.
Well, as we close out, last thing I just want to ask you, and again, I'm going to do for the third time, I highly encourage y'all to go tune into what Astro put together and kind of how you go in there. And they kind of talked a little bit about that, and I know we probably didn't get a chance to cover you letting this video crew in, but I guess also just showing your level of humility and your level of like, I really want this to matter. I just hope y'all know me and Astro got to catch up even before this conversation. I think it's incredible to just see somebody. It's not like a normal military man thing to do or gal thing to do, but I think understand just like the stakes that were on the line is what struck me when you told me about when you invited these people in y'all's home, basically.
Yeah.
It was kind of letting them see everything. And if y'all watch the show, you'll see that it's not a Top Gun clip. I mean, this is the human side of sacrifice and people and stress and flying those jets at G's and being a human in a cockpit doing those things. So thank you for doing that, Astro. I just want to end with anything that keeps you hopeful about the future of our country and just kind of where it's going, and maybe one day when you do take the uniform off.
Absolutely. And it's you're not going to find it on social, and you're not going to find it on TV. You're going to find it in your communities and in your families. And I believe, and I mean this, I am not just saying that, I believe we are right on the cusp of finally rejecting the division that's coming into our phones. I think that we bought it for a long time. I think we believed for a while that it might just be fulfilling to have 1 million followers and get a couple ad sponsors in there. And I think that we believed that. But I think that our culture is starting to come back from it now. And I'm starting to see it in the way that folks my age are raising their kids. I've got a 9 and a 7-year-old. And we've seen enough now to know that self-promotion, well, it was never good when we were growing up, and it's not good now. And there was a little while where we maybe thought that, we would say things like, hey, if you can't sell yourself, who's going to do it for you? That's not a good value. But I think Americans are seeing it. And I think we are starting to recognize that that whole thing is just a vortex of ads and disinformation.
Yeah.
And so no one even has to push it. In fact, that's the American way. Don't let people decide that for themselves. The way we rejected ads on TV and TiVoed them out of existence in the 90s, like that's coming for social media.
Yeah.
We are going to wake up one day and be like, that was dumb. And when we do that, we'll start focusing on values again and on our communities and on our families and on our sense of purpose. Not the stuff that we're going to talk about, but the stuff we're just going to do because it feels good to do. That's the hope I've got for America. And I see it. It's coming.
Yeah, when you get to live it every day.
Yeah.
Astro, honored to be here, man. So stoked. Thank you for letting us in your house and giving us a little piece of your mind. Most importantly, thank you and the rest of the crew that flies the flag every single day for your service, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, JC, for what you do, because your depth is the antidote to short form media. It is critical. It is the way forward. And I really respect you for that, not just for your public service that you gave a lot of time for the red, white, and blue, but what you're doing now is awesome.
Thanks, Astro. Likewise. Thanks for tuning in to the American Operator Podcast, where we celebrate the backbone of America, small business owners and operators like you. If you've enjoyed today's episode,
Be sure to subscribe so you'll never miss out on more of these stories and insights from people who keep our community strong. Until next time, keep building, keep operating, and keep America moving forward.